Love will guide us, peace has tried us, hope inside us will lead the way on the road from greed to giving. Love will guide us through the hard night. If you cannot sing like angels, if you cannot speak before thousands, you can give from deep within you. You can change the world with your love. As Unitarian Universalists, we believe that truth is larger than any one source or book or way, that religion and science go hand in hand, that integrity requires freedom of conscience, that diversity is something to celebrate, that in the struggle for justice, we come alive, that our highest aspiration and calling is love. Guide us, peace has tried us, hope inside us will lead the way on the road from greed to giving. Love will guide us through the hard night. Whoever you are, whomever you love, whatever path you are on, you are welcome here. Hello, West Shore. Good morning. You know, this past May, this congregation at its annual meeting did something that could honestly be considered historic. It approved a strategy for growing our social justice program. Not that there's never been any strategies. The board has had its strategies over the years. The previous ministers have had their strategies over the years. Various justice groups have had their strategies over the years, but none can substitute for the congregation's collective vision, for the congregation's collective voice. And on May 21st of 2023, that all changed. The congregation's will was made known. I think the vote was 98% in favor of our collective justice vision, focusing on 5 high-level strategies. Number 1, greater accountability to our social justice commitment. Number 2, a strengthened connection between social justice and spirituality. Number 3, increased participation in social justice programs. Number 4, increased support for partnerships with area organizations. And number 5, increased resource support for our social justice programs and volunteers. So now that we have voted for this, it is time for us to make progress. And a key component of this is the Justice Vision Steering Team, the leaders of which will steer us in this work, will encourage us, keep us informed, help us celebrate our successes. How many of you didn't even know we had a collective social justice vision? How many of you? Well, that's going to stop here pretty soon. You are going to know what's going on, what progress we will be making, and all of that good stuff. Now, right now, I want to introduce to you the folks who responded to the call to be a part of the steering team. They are all members of West Shore with passion for justice, as well as an ability to manage a multi-year project, because that's really what we're talking about. That's what the collective justice vision really is. Our team startup was yesterday, and I want to tell you how enthusiastic I was when our time together was over, coming out of that meeting. These are the right folks with the right skills for the work, and I'm very excited. And I want to introduce them to you right now. Here's the team. Please come up when I call your name. Stasha Powell. And why don't you just stand right here on this line. That's Stasha. Shan Spellman. Mary Jo Maish. Janet Neighboring Stager. Janet's bringing the drama to it, like the slow walk from the back. So there they are, your Justice Vision steering team. Hold your applause, hold your applause, hold your applause. You guys are a bunch of Unitarians. You don't listen. We're gonna applause for them in a moment. But I want to ask you, West Shore, I want to ask you something. Will you honor these leaders in their deep desire to serve this congregation? Will you collaborate with them, create with them, work with them, so that West Shore fulfills more of its potential? Will you support their work among us to help us live out our collective justice vision? Do you commission these folks to serve as your Justice Vision steering team members? If so, please say with me right now, yes! That's what I'm talking. Y'all heard that? Y'all heard that? Do you feel commissioned? Bam! That's a commissioning. Oh, yeah. Now, I want to invite you to come and meet your steering team members at the sermon chat, which is today at noon in the chapel, in addition to talking about the sermon and exploring it more in depth. We're lighting our chalice today in a spirit of service and celebration and gratitude. So now, as we light our chalice, please show these guys some love. Show them some love. Here we go. Here we go. Thank you, guys. You can be seated now. Thank you. Well, once again, welcome. So I don't know about you guys, but I think this is the best place to be in Cleveland on a Sunday morning. You keep on hearing me say that every Sunday, but I still believe it every Sunday. We're glad you're here. Welcome to everyone. Welcome also to the folks joining us virtually from home. Now, West Shore has so much good that is going on. You just saw one piece. There's just so many other things. Check out your West Shore Weekly. Lots of information here about other ways in which you can build friendships, go deeper with your friendships, grow spiritually. Lots of opportunities for connection and service and on and on. Now, let me ask, if you are here for the first or second time and you do not mind other people knowing, raise your arm. Let's see you. All right, guys, show them some love. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. Absolutely. Children grades K through 5 will now go to Children's Chapel. Our middle and high school youth will go to their classes while the rest of us greet each other warmly. The greeting time will end with the sounding of the bowl. Let's greet each other. We come to this good morning, remembering the journey of freedom. The land we are on was once another's. We mourn the legacies of oppression. Healing is our way forward. Joy is the birthright of all. So for quite a long time now, Unitarian Universalists have spoken of something called AROMAC, which is an acronym: Anti-Racism, Anti-Oppression, Multiculturalism. Back in 2008, the West Shore Board voted to commit this church to embodying more of AROMAC in its being. More recently, this congregation at its 2022 annual meeting voted overwhelmingly to affirm the eighth principle, which is another way of talking about AROMAC. Our eighth principle states, journeying towards spiritual wholeness, good, that sounds pretty good, by working to build a multicultural, beloved community, okay, by our actions that accountably dismantle racism and other oppressions in ourselves and in our institution. So that's the full eighth principle. And AROMAC. And I think it's fair to say that this vote in 2022 represents a grassroots recommitment to that board action from 16 long years ago. We are opening up a new chapter in our commitment to helping create a world and a congregation that embodies more of the diversity, equity, and inclusion vision of justice. By the way, diversity, equity, inclusion, that's how the world talks about the eighth principle, or AROMAC. That's the, what's in currency and business and so on. Right now, I want to keep this conversation going and hear from you. Again, right now, you're going to need a 3x5 note card. All right, you should have one in your order of service. If you don't have one, raise your arm. An usher will race to you. All right, get you one of these. I really actually do hope they race to you. I just want to see that. Get some exercise right on a Sunday morning. So everyone wants to have one of these 3x5 note cards. I'm going to ask you a couple questions, invite your response, and I want to say to you, I know we're doing quite a bit of this, these past couple weeks, but these are really interesting. They are really impactful, the sorts of things you've got to say. So I just really want to encourage you, what you write down on these cards really matters to our leadership, to our church. So thank you for taking some time investing in doing this. Here's the two questions I want you to write about in your card. The first one is short and sweet. On a scale of 1 to 10, on a scale of 1 to 10, what's your honest sense of the priority in doing AROMAC work, or eighth principle work, or diversity, equity, inclusion work? Now, I know we had that congregational vote back in 2022, but it is good to get up-to-date feedback. So on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 is to say it's completely unimportant. Unimportant. Doesn't matter. That's 1. 10 is, oh my God, it's the most important thing we could ever do. Got it? 1 to 10? So what's your opinion, right? What's your sense of the priority of doing AROMAC work in this congregation on a scale between 1 to 10? Okay? Everybody's clear? Just take a moment. Do. All right, so here's the second question. We're looking for gut instinct, so you don't have to think about it that hard. Second question, what is a skill that you would personally like to develop or around anti-racism, anti-oppression, multiculturalism? What's a skill you would like to personally develop? Or what's just something you'd like to learn more about? Something you'd like to learn more about related to anti-racism, anti-oppression, multiculturalism. Okay, one or the other or both. Something you want to learn, a skill, or just more information. You want more information about something in that category of topics. Write that down right underneath your number. Okay. Everybody got that? We really appreciate this feedback, sincerely. You are welcome to write your name on your card if you want. You do not have to. You can keep this anonymous. That is just fine. Okay, no pressure on that. You good? Most of you responded? You know, I should learn that it's just not very effective to ask like 150 people a question because nobody knows who's supposed to respond for the group, right? Elizabeth, you did this, though. Elizabeth answered for you guys. We're good. Alrighty, folks. Thank you once again. The ushers are going to come around now. They're going to collect your card together with today's offering. Thank you for your gifts of money, which are obviously a big part in helping to make our church possible, but also for your gifts of information and feedback. That is critical stuff. Thank you. The offerings will now be given and gratefully received.
Today's reading comes from All About Love, the book by author, theorist, educator, and social critic Bell Hooks. Embracing a love ethic means that we utilize all the dimensions of love: care, commitment, trust, responsibility, respect, and knowledge in our everyday lives. We can successfully do this only by cultivating awareness. Being aware enables us to critically examine our actions to see what is needed so that we can give care, be responsible, show respect, and indicate a willingness to learn. Understanding knowledge as an essential element of love is vital because we are daily bombarded with messages that tell us love is about mystery, about that which cannot be known. We see movies in which people are represented as being in love who never talk with one another, who fall into bed without ever discussing their bodies, their sexual needs, their likes and dislikes. Indeed, the message received from the mass media is that knowledge makes love less compelling, that it is ignorance that gives love its erotic and transgressive edge. These messages are often brought to us by profiteering producers who have no clue about the art of loving, who substitute their mystified visions because they do not really know how to genuinely portray loving interaction. Not embracing a love ethic, acting with no thought to the consequences of our actions, is a bit like eating a ton of junk food. While it may taste good, in the end, the body is really never adequately nourished and remains in a constant state of lack and longing. Our souls feel this lack when we act unethically, behaving in ways that diminish our spirits and dehumanize others. Here ends the reading.
Let us now share deeply from the heart in our beloved ritual of for all that is our lives. you came up, whether or not you came up to place a stone or to write something on a card, whether or not you did that, we each bring joys and sorrows, concerns, worries. We're bringing them to this place. We're bringing them as a community of mutual care and concern. So I invite you just to think of the joys and concerns you're bringing this morning and to imagine the person sitting beside you, what they must be bringing. May our congregation be one that embodies the world we want to see. Greater love, greater compassion, greater self-love. For myself, I'll take these cards into my prayers this week, my meditations, and pray for all that is our life. All right. Woo! So the day before I went in to the doctor to get my surgical procedure on my left hip, the day before, I wrote this in my personal journal. I wrote, "It started back in 2017. Once in a while episodes of my hips locking up momentarily, then unlocking, and each time the pain would be blinding. Who knew that all of these years later it would culminate in full disability, my limping, stiff, anguished, arthritic pain body, which is no longer able to run or practice yoga or do even the simplest skating moves, which used to be easy as pie. 6 years later, I've been reduced to someone who struggles even to put socks on. And with every moment in my life, every movement, I'm groaning, oof, or All my shoes have become slip-ons. Back in 2017, I did not even know the word osteoarthritis, and now it hangs like a storm cloud over every aspect of my life. The day after I wrote that, I went in for hip resurfacing surgery. In less than 3 hours, arthritic pain was replaced by post-surgery pain, and the journey of healing and recovery beyond pain. And I am not out of the woods yet. The right hip gets resurfaced in late February, and I get to experience post-surgery pain and the journey of healing and recovery all over again. Thank God I only got 2 hips. Right? But I want to tell you about the Sunday I appeared before you when I was using my rollator. It was December 17th. On that Sunday, I preached my personal letter to the angels. My surgeon had told me that for 6 weeks after the surgery, I was not to put full body weight onto my left leg. I needed to give my body time enough to fully integrate the new hip hardware. So for 6 weeks, my marching orders, were to use a walker or a walker with wheels. Again, that's what a rollator is. Anytime I was up and about, we were just attached. December 17th was 4 weeks post-op, so rollator it had to be. And one of the things I remember from that Sunday is that I could not go down these chancel steps. How do you do that? I couldn't go down those chancel steps. I came through that door. I couldn't go down those steps. I couldn't go up those steps. So during the greeting time, when you got to enjoy the pleasures of connection, I was forced to watch. I couldn't be a part of it. I felt awkward and weird and lonely. This is public space, supposedly navigable by all, but it didn't work for my body the way my body happened to be at the time. My body didn't belong in this space. From this, I was reminded again, that the realization of having a certain social identity comes as an experience of loss. Before my surgery and way back before that, before the time when my osteoarthritis dominated every waking moment, I had never really thought of myself as abled. I suppose my identity was an unconditional and simple just me. I was just me. I was full of a sense of freedom. I was full of a sense of possibility. But when I lost physical ableness, with it came a double enlightenment. Suddenly, I came to realize that all along, the world had been judging me, and before being disabled, I must have been judged worthy because the world worked for me. The world worked for the body that I had. Architecture of all kinds affirmed that. But all of that changed with my disability. Now, the world looked upon me with a constant frown. Why are we laughing? This double enlightenment fell upon me like a bomb when on December 17th, I was stranded up here during the greeting time, unable to go down there and join in all the hugging and all the handshaking. After worship, Rachel, my girlfriend, and I, we went to lunch to First Watch in Rocky River. It's a good place. We were put on the wait list, and so to kill some time, we went next door to a certain boutique shop whose name I forget, but it's full of tchotchkes and whatnots, and Rachel was looking for some holiday gifts for her staff, her office staff, and while I, in my role later, I could get in the door, there were a bunch of aisles that were way too narrow. Every time I encountered a way too narrow aisle, my changed identity as disabled and unworthy was solidified. And so was my sense of being alienated from a world that used to love me and work for bodies like mine, the body I used to have. When next we went to a favorite bookstore of ours, and I experienced the same thing, aisles way too narrow for me, the space not made for my body, my changed identity solidified even further. The world, in its unkindness, was not letting up. When you have an identity that the world does not favor, it is amazing how relentless it is about letting you know that. So it made sense to me how social justice advocates can use troubling and perhaps even divisive words like privileged and oppressed and supremacy. In my ableness, I was privileged to be able to move around easily. In my disabledness, the world felt oppressive, and it taught me again and again and again and again about the supremacy of ableness. Social justice words like privilege and oppression and supremacy can indeed sound strident, but that does not mean that they are exaggerations. Do you know what I'm talking about? One of the main things I'm talking about is how there always comes a time in everyone's life when your sense of self changes. You start out with a simple, just me, I'm just me, sense of self. It's full of freedom, it's full of possibility, but then something happens, and you come to learn that the world never saw you the way you saw yourself. It never saw you like that. You become very aware that you hold certain identities that used to just be who you are, but now you know that some of them are a serious problem for a lot of people. It can happen in so many ways. Besides the loss of body functions, legs, eyes, ears, etc., there can be a loss of health, as when you suffer from a chronic illness and suddenly the medical establishment doesn't know what to do with you. There is, of course, the eventual loss of youth for everyone, resulting in a youth-fixated world that will just pass older people on by. And then there can be, for some of us, the loss of fertility, discovering that you are infertile. For others of us, it's the loss of a marriage, it's the loss of a child, it's the loss of a job, it's the loss of sobriety. Sometimes it's the loss of being able to be spiritually, in the closet because you are an atheist. and you are different from everyone else in your family, or you are a Buddhist, or you are a witch. With that identity comes loss. So many kinds of losses, so many ways the loss can happen. And then what about this loss? You are a young boy and you get upset about something and you start to cry. And your mother slaps you hard across the face and tells you that boys don't cry. Be a man. Men are strong. Or you are a young girl and you don't want to wear that pretty dress. You want to work with tools. Your dad works with tools. You want to work with tools. And your dad tells you, stop that. Girls don't work with tools. Girls are supposed to be pretty and feminine while the boys work with the tools. How many of you people in this space can relate to that? Sometimes the loss can be completely invisible to others. I want you to consider the case of the female movie star, beauty queen, who, when young, had terrible teeth that went every which way. And so she lost the simple sense of being just unconditionally herself early on by learning from bullies that she had a social identity of being ugly. She went on to internalize that social identity of ugliness, and that identity of ugliness stayed with her even after her dentistry fixed everything, and maturity grew her up to be a gorgeous adult woman that straight men dream of. Everyone saw the beauty queen, but nobody saw the ugly, buck-toothed girl she never stopped feeling she was. And then there's this loss. You might have come to West Shore's service auction back in November, and you heard the message that everyone could participate. You got excited about the live auction in particular. But then, when the live auction unfolded, you realized, to your horror, that things like seats at special themed dinners were going for $300 or more each. And that's way beyond what you can afford. And it also offends your values. All you could do was watch while others around you had their middle to upper middle class fun. And this loss led to a stronger sense of your blue collar class identity, and you're feeling that maybe this is not the place for you. By now, I will bet that this sermon is feeling very heavy. And I know, because loss is a heavy topic. Facing the reality that the world does not allow people to keep simple and unconditionally valued identities. The world doesn't allow that, but actively divides people up into worthy and unworthy, privileged and oppressed. Well, that is a heavy subject indeed. Even heavier is realizing that people might have been suffering in your midst and you didn't even see it. Maybe you inadvertently did something or said something to have caused that suffering. This is just so hard to hold. This is so hard to bear. And one question our troubled minds might fly to is why? Why does the world polarize people like this? Why does it separate people into the privileged and the oppressed? You know, historians show that each form of oppression comes from somewhere, comes from out of the efforts of human beings and human institutions that are the original architects. Hell is right here. It is not in some kind of supernatural other world. And the usual culprit, folks, is greed. Greed. But greed can be combined with a desire to remain pure. Purity is a consideration that plays a way larger role than a lot of people might think it does. Evolutionarily, groups want to remain pure because contamination by what seems impure can weaken the group and make it easier to destroy. Survival of the fit demands purity. I just personally think that a combination of greed and purity as the ultimate explanation for systems of oppression can go far. But that doesn't give answers about the specific historical details. Everyone should seek to learn about those details, those historical details about the origins of racism and sexism and homophobia, classism, on and on. Too much to cover in just one sermon. All I can say here, for any system of oppression, you have the original architects of that supremacy. And then you've got the legacy architects across time that want to take up the cause of those original architects. And they see the continued spread of that oppression as a matter of loyalty to family and loyalty to the cause. And then you have the supremacy bureaucrats who are consciously aware of the system of oppression, but they just keep their heads down. They just do their jobs. They just try not to attract the attention and the punishment of the higher-ups. And then finally, you have the children of supremacy, who, like children everywhere, grow up in a world that has been made for them, and they just do as they've been taught to do without necessarily knowing why. The supremacy system operates through them unconsciously. They don't know any better. There's no conscious awareness at all. Now, nobody in this room is an original architect of an oppressive system because those people lived a long time ago. Nobody in this room is a legacy architect or a supremacy bureaucrat because otherwise this faith would have repelled you. You would not want to be in this space. You just wouldn't want to be here. But I can say that everyone here, myself included, is a child of supremacy. It means that we are all filled with unconscious biases that come simply by virtue of growing up and absorbing already existing patterns of oppression. Do you know about unconscious biases? How many of you are familiar with that? If you've ever been responsible for hiring someone, for example, and you had a positive gut instinct about an applicant who was younger than the others, or the applicant who was more physically attractive, or the male applicant who was tall, well, it's highly likely that your gut instinct was influenced by unconscious bias, which causes you to favor some social identities rather than others. Unconscious bias is a fact. It is a scientific fact that Americans are unconsciously biased in favor of youth, physical attractiveness, maleness, and tallness in males. That last part I know because I was online dating for a lot of years. And I'm 5'9". The cutoff for many folks, 5'10". Stupid unconscious bias. It's just a scientific fact that Americans are unconsciously biased in favor of things and against other things. The science of this goes on and on, which takes us to the next question. As we hold the heaviness of this whole subject of loss and complexity and the social division of the privileged versus the oppressed, as we hold all of this together with the love that stirs in our hearts and minds and calls us to create a better and more just world. The next question being, what do I do about it? What do we do about it? And the first thing is to listen, and then listen some more. This is something Bell Hooks, in her wonderful book, All About Love, speaks of when she talks about a love ethic that emphasizes cultivating awareness. Being aware, she says, enables us to critically examine our actions and to see what is needed so that we can give care, be responsible, show respect, indicate a willingness to learn. Exactly. A good start is to listen to the unconscious bias within. Okay? How does it operate within you? What are those gut instinct moments when you feel spontaneously attracted to or repelled by someone with a certain identity? What do your resulting behaviors look like? And what do your justifications later sound like? You know, when Hillary when Hillary, you know the Hillary I'm talking about, right? Some of you are going, oh God, no, or whatever. When Hillary was up for election back in 2016, a lot of folks were saying that they were fine with a woman being in the White House, but they didn't vote for her. They didn't vote for her. And enough people said they didn't vote for her because she wasn't feminine enough. Or she wasn't perfect enough. Compared to Trump? Or she wasn't something else enough. Blah, blah, blah. I'll risk saying out loud that these were just rationalizations, making sense of an unconscious bias against a woman being president. That's just my sense of it, my suspicion. You have your thoughts also. We are Unitarian Universalists. We can respect our diversity of thoughts. Unconscious bias is tricky, though. It's unconscious, and it influences so much of what we do. We must listen closely to ourselves, and then we need to listen to others. I guarantee everyone is going to have their own story to tell of privilege mixed up with oppression. Everyone has been granted social passes, and everyone has a target on their head simultaneously. Maybe you are white and straight, but you are ADHD, and that neurodivergent social identity targets you. Maybe you are wealthy, but you're also gay. Maybe you have a PhD, but you are transgender. Maybe you are black, but your skin color is a lighter shade of black, giving you a distinct advantage over others whose skin is darker, and therefore they suffer from a prejudice called colorism. Maybe you are that famous female movie queen, but no one sees the ugly, buck-toothed person that you never stop seeing yourself as, no matter how changed your circumstances. Someone once says, folks say it's Plato, I'm not sure about that, but the idea is beautiful. Be kind, because everyone is fighting a hard battle of which you may be completely unaware. Allow your awareness to be raised. Listen. Listen, for example, to the story of the young black boy who had a best friend from school who was black. The day came when the white friend invited his black friend to his house. What happened was that the white boy's father ordered the black boy to get out using the N-word, and then he proceeded to beat his white son within an inch of his life. Listen to the loss that is going to be there for both of those boys for as long as they shall live. They will never forget. The black boy learning once again that he just can't be just himself, that the world will always label him as black and bad. The white boy learning that he can't just be himself either, that he's got to hate black people as a matter of self-preservation, as a matter of not being abandoned by the people whom he relies on for everything. This is real life. This is life. This is reality. This is the human condition. What a hard story to share. And you know, sometimes what is most needed is a safe space and others listening you into speech. Their listening helps you to remember things that you have blocked because it's too painful. Their listening enables you to reconnect with a bit of your truth that you have been missing. There's been a hole in your heart because you've not been able to connect with your wholeness, your fullness. You become more yourself now that you know more of your story. That's a good thing. It's hard, but good. Allow your awareness to be raised. See movies, listen to podcasts, read books, read Bell Hooks. That's a great book to be looking at. And what about that service auction questionnaire I invited you all to fill out this past December 3rd? That's a way this church allowed its collective awareness to be raised. Of the 100 or so folks who responded, there were at least 10 people who shared their consternation that an event that they thought was financially accessible to everyone wasn't. which leads to the next thing to do. When folks with oppressed identities tell their stories to people who have the corresponding privileged identity. And by that I mean, a person of color tells of a terrible experience of prejudice, and people who are white hear it with ears attached to white bodies. Or consider that service auction questionnaire again. Blue-collar folks saying what they said in our service auction questionnaire. I've just shared that with you. And people who are middle class hearing it in middle-class bodies with middle-class ears. Or this, Reverend Makar, speaking of his experience from this past December 17th, when he was tied to his rollator and he couldn't go down and enjoy the greeting time with you, when the rest of you are having a great time. I was up here just feeling stupid. Most of you are hearing this with ears attached to abled bodies. Now, typically what follows is something that the social scientist Brené Brown calls privilege shame. Say that phrase with me, privilege shame. Privilege shame, yes. People with privileged identities learn what life is like for those whose corresponding identities are oppressed. And they feel terrible about it. White folks feel terrible about the terrors and tribulations black people, people of color face. Middle-class folks or abled folks feel horrified at that blue-collar folks or disabled folks were in their midst and they were suffering and they didn't see it. Big picture, all the ways that being white or middle class or abled or straight or cisgender or tall or handsome, all of these ways enable a person to avoid a lot of trouble in life, a lot of trouble. And that's unearned. It's undeserved. What did you do, right, to earn that pass that allows you to get out of so much social trouble? Whereas people with the opposite identities, they're being targeted all the time. What did I get? Why do I get to be white? And therefore get to avoid so much trouble. But Tamir Rice, who was a young, innocent black boy, got shot by the police. And so on. You know, the strange thing is, once you learn that you have one or more identities that the world privileges, all of a sudden it doesn't feel like a privilege anymore. Can you relate to that? All of a sudden it doesn't feel like a privilege anymore. The blessing feels like a curse. Being white doesn't stop protecting you from police violence, for example, but you don't want it anymore. But you can't shed your white skin. You can't do that. You can't stop benefiting from the privilege. You know, I've seen some folks with privileged identities. They reach for this solution. They try to recover a sense of self-esteem, a sense of self-worth through pride. Let's have a pride march for straight people. Let's have a pride event for the abled. I'm not kidding. And the thing about this is, the problem with social identities, like being straight or being able, is that they continue to be socially advantageous. They still work for the people who've got them by ensuring that they get to avoid all sorts of troubles that regularly harm people with the opposite identities. People with privileged identities don't need pride. What they need is empowerment. They need empowerment. What can I do with the gifts that life has given me to make life better for all? If there was ever a time for amen in this sermon, that was it. It's empowerment, learning to be empowered. We're going to do that here at West Shore. Empowerment. It's one of the reasons why I asked you that question. What's a skill you'd like to learn? That's empowerment. Let's stop staying abstract about this. How can you be empowered? There's something else I've seen. I've seen too many times when folks early on in their awareness raising about privilege get slammed by anti-oppression educators and trainers. I'm talking sledgehammer tactics. You got that image? Sledgehammer tactics? Does that image resonate? Yeah. Sledgehammer tactics are used on them. Now, some folks with privilege, they might even want that because they feel like they've got to atone for something. They feel like they need to be punished to pay for the lives that they have had up till that point. But you know what? All a sledgehammer does is crush a person's basic sense of humanity and grind them even further into shame and farther away from empowerment, which is what they need to begin with. No one deserves that. And if you seek to atone for your privileged sins, well, there's far better ways of doing that which actually result in real change that helps real people who really need it. No more sledgehammer tactics. If you have a social identity that you are learning is privileged, the next step is not self-flagellation. The next step is learning how you can use your power in a non-paternalistic, truly helpful way to empower others. Thank you. Finally, the amens. God, jeez. This is a heavy topic. I know this is heavy. As for folks whose identities the world judges as unworthy, I have something I want to say to you. What I want to say to you is that you are a human individual. It means that you are composed of at least 16 different kinds of social identities, if not more. We all are. At least 16 different kinds of social identities. But they are people with identities that are not privileged. And what I want to say to them is beyond and beneath all of those social identities, they and all of us, we are children of God. And that identity is your birthright, and society has no say in it. And so I say to you, the person with identities that are not privileged, don't allow the world to collapse all of who you are into a single identity. If you are black, for example, don't allow well-meaning folks, probably white, to assume that when you come to church, maybe a church like this, all you care about is anti-racism. And surely you want to head our anti-racism initiative, because maybe what you really want to do is sing. Maybe you want to be a part of the pastoral care team. Maybe you just want to get to be a part of the knitting group and knit stuff. Don't let the world collapse all of who you are into one thing. That'll drive you crazy. Happens all the time. Don't let them do it. You have many ideas and identities and not just one. You are many things and not just one. And more than this, if you hold a social identity that the world hates, and you know with all painfulness how that hatred can get inside you, you know that. It's like Virgilio Elizondo says, who is speaking to a Latino audience, but in particular, but this applies to anybody with an oppressed identity. He says, if you hear again and again that you are inferior, good for nothing, incompetent, and lazy, you may eventually begin to start believing it yourself. So I say, may you find countervailing forces that trouble that belief, that resist that belief, that helps you to reclaim all of who you are as worthy. Love all of who you are. Love your Latino self, love your gay self, love your wrinkly old self. Find the blessing in who you are, where you are. Defy the world. The world is full of agendas that don't care about you. So you must care about you. Don't let the world and its systems of oppression get in your head, become an internalized voice of hate, and spoil the one wild, precious life that is yours and is too soon done and over. Amen. Amen. When I was walking disabled, tied to my rollator, relatively immobile, I found that I had more opportunity actually to be mobile internally, spiritually. And I found a sweet solidarity with other folks in this community who are also disabled. We got to know each other in a way that was impossible otherwise. And on that December morning, when I preached about angels, and I was stuck to my rollator, and to get out of here, I had to go through the chancel door, all the way through this is me, I'm having a hard time. I'm experiencing intense pain. I got to walk all the way around to get to the receiving line, which is over there. That's what I had to do, because This doesn't work for my body. So I did that. I got to that receiving line, and there I met a man who was a father of a young girl who is disabled. That young girl had been in the service, right? And he said that his daughter mentioned to him at one point, she whispered to him, she said, "Dad, the minister, he's just like me." She had wonderment in her eyes. She couldn't believe it. My disability, temporary as it was, gave me a gift of love and joy that I would never have had otherwise. It was like a gift from the angels that I had just been preaching about. Solidarity with that young girl, with a full life in front of her, facing a world that's going to make it hard for her, for people like her, and unfairly so, but maybe I helped her a little to know that she was not alone, that she will never be alone, that who cares what the world says, that she is a child of God, she is worthy, she is worthy, she is worthy. And so are all of you. It is like we sing every Sunday. We come to this good morning, remembering the journey of freedom. The land we are on was once another's. We mourn the legacies of oppression. Healing is our way forward. Joy is the birthright of all. Amen. Let's extinguish our chalice, say the words together. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry with us until we meet again. Come and go with me to that land. Come and go with me to that land. Come and go with me to that land where I'm bound. Come and go with me to that land. Come and go with me to that land. Come and go with me to that land where I'm bound. There'll be freedom in that land. There'll be freedom in that land. There'll be freedom in that land where I'm bound. There'll be freedom in that land. There'll be freedom in that land. There'll be freedom in that land where I'm bound. There'll be justice in that land. There'll be justice in that land. There'll be justice in that land where I'm bound. There'll be justice in that land. There'll be justice in that land. There'll be justice in that land where I'm bound. There'll be singing in that land. There'll be singing in that land. There'll be singing in that land where I'm bound. There'll be singing in that land. There'll be singing in that land. There'll be singing in that land where I'm bound. So I want to share with you a quote from James Baldwin, someone else who's just amazing, his thoughts, his insights. James Baldwin, he says, "The longer I live, the more deeply I learn that love, whether we call it friendship or family or romance, it is the work of mirroring and magnifying each other's light. Gentle work, steadfast work, life-saving work in those moments when life and shame and sorrow occlude, cover over our own light from our own view. But there is still a clear-eyed, loving person to beam it back to you. In our best moments, we are that person for someone else. Be that person for someone else. May you find your light, feel your light, and reveal another person's light. May that happen for you this week, this month, this year. May it be so. Amen. Please be seated.